After being abandoned for over 6 months underneath a tree, this Mitsubishi Montero refused to start. In our last video, we found out something was wrong with the fuel system, so we rebuilt the fuel pump assembly and replaced the fuel filter. After fixing those two things, the car starts right up. However, there's a lot of noise coming from this side of the car whenever it's running. More specifically, around this area. Now that could either mean it's an exhaust leak from, let's say, the exhaust manifold, or from the catalytic converter. Looking underneath the car, it's safe to say the catalytic converter is the issue. And well, the welds don't look that good, especially with all the rust on them. That's probably the reason why it's leaking. This one's not even original. I mean, look how small it is. On top of that, instead of removing this catalytic converter properly, it seems like they just cut it and welded one in. And this section of the exhaust is made up of 3 pieces. You have the wide pipe, the catalytic converter, and the small connecting piece. And since they're all welded together, that means we're gonna have to remove the entire exhaust. And to do this, we have to jack the car up to get access to the bolts on the 4-wheel drive shaft. This is because there's not enough clearance between the drive shaft and the left side manifold downpipe, which is what we need to remove. Now, my father and I are removing 2 of the bolts on one side of the drive shaft. This is a 2-person job because as you're trying to get that bolt out, there's actually a nut on the back that you need to hold on to, otherwise the whole bolt will just spin. We need to reach the bolts on the other side, so I'm going to jack up the car and my father's going to rotate the left wheel. This is going to spin the drive shaft. This happens because the front wheels are directly connected to the transfer case, and they actually spin in opposite directions, so when the left one goes backwards, the right one goes forward.
Okay, and let the drive shaft slowly down.
We need to take this bolt out, which holds this bracket on, which then holds on this pipe that connects to the exhaust manifold. There's the exhaust manifold up there, and we'll just follow it down. There's the transfer case, and it'll connect up to this exhaust pipe here. This white pipe's going to be a little interesting getting out of here because there's supposed to be a break in this section here for it to separate the white pipe from the catalytic converter. They welded it right here. I say we take a Sawzall and just cut this thing right in half. That way we'll just be able to easily drop this white pipe down. Since we're not keeping the exhaust system, I'm using a saw to cut off the tailpipe. That way we don't have to wrestle with the muffler, it should just come out pretty easily. We're gonna be swapping this entire exhaust system from our parts car onto our 99 Montero. This is just the muffler with the tailpipe, then we have our catalytic converter, and then the pipe that connects the catalytic converter to the muffler. The exhaust from the parts car came from the desert, so it's just covered in sand. Before we started, these were caked in sand and rust. I even tried power washing them and it wouldn't come off. But after a lot of scrubbing with a wire brush, we got them looking pretty nice. It took quite a few days to clean up this entire exhaust system, but we managed to do it. Everything from the exhaust manifolds back has been cleaned and the rust has been removed. Some rusts are in some really tight places and I couldn't get them off, so I ended up using this rust neutralizer, and this is just as good as sanding it off. So we're gonna be spraying this exhaust with some high temp black paint because I don't want to be seen from underneath the car, and we need something that's gonna hold up against the temperatures of this exhaust system. With the old exhaust off, the newly refreshed exhaust goes on, but not without new O2 sensors and every single exhaust gasket that we'll need. And we went ahead and replaced all the necessary hardware that we'll need because ours was extremely rusty and ended up breaking and getting stuck. The O2 sensors cost me about 80 bucks. All the exhaust gaskets cost me about $15 to $20, and then the hardware cost me anywhere from 30 to 40 bucks. I'm trying to put the exhaust pipe back on the car, and I've just come to a little surprise. There's a toad living in there. Mr. Toad is safe. We're putting the muffler back onto the car first. This is because all the other exhaust components hang freely, meaning they don't have brackets that attach them to the car like the muffler does. So it'll act as a central attachment point for everything. The muffler only has one bracket at the front that connects to the frame of the car. So the back is resting on the rear axle, putting a lot of stress on this rubber hanger. To keep it from breaking, we're going to put the tailpipe on. This bolts up to the frame connecting to the muffler. Now we're going to attach the pipe that connects the catalytic converter to the muffler. There's supposed to be 2 rubber hangers that go on either side of this so it doesn't dangle, but I don't put them on at this moment because I misplaced them when I took the exhaust off. Now we're going to replace the oxygen sensors before we put the catalytic converter back on. This is because the catalytic converter is very bulky and it's going to get in our way. Once the oxygen sensors have been replaced, I'm going to use the twist tie hangers and secure the cables so that way they do not touch the hot pipes and cause issues later on. But we don't want them to be too tight because we want the exhaust to have some wiggle room so that when the car's in motion, the O2 sensors do not come unplugged. The catalytic converter is going back onto the car, so I'm going to use 2 bolts and a gasket to secure it, but I'm not going to tighten them down all the way, that way there's room for adjustment. For some reason, there's a pretty big gap between the Y pipe and the catalytic converter. No matter how much wiggling I do, I cannot close this gap. We really just need a way to pinch the Y pipe and the catalytic converter together to close the gap. So my solution is to use these nuts and slide them over the studs with a nut on the end that fits the threads, tightening each side one at a time. This is going to pull the Y pipe and the catalytic converter together
together. It seemed to work out pretty well because now there's no gap. Now we're going to connect the Y pipe back up to the driver's side exhaust manifold downpipe. This bracket secures the driver's side exhaust manifold downpipe to the plate that protects the bottom of the transmission. Except we weren't able to put it back on because there wasn't enough room between the two. There was just too much tension on the system. I figured this was normal because the car is pretty old, so I decided to just leave it off. Now we're going to connect the driver's side exhaust manifold downpipe back up to the exhaust manifold. We're just going to repeat that step, but on the passenger side. The full exhaust is back on, so now we're going to connect the four-wheel drive shaft back up to the car. We've just finished replacing the entire exhaust from the exhaust manifold to the tailpipe of the car. Now let's find out if our hard work ended up paying off. I don't think that fixed it. It's a lot louder. The exhaust is really loud on the driver's side, which means we have a leak somewhere. I took the driver's side downpipe that we redid from our 96 and I compared it to our 99. While they do look nearly identical, there are some differences. If we put them on top of each other, we can see that our 99 exhaust is actually longer than the 96 one, which would explain why we had such a difficult time putting it on the car. We really had to stretch it. This stretching created a gap between the exhaust manifold and the driver's side downpipe, so let's swap them. We finally got the car back together. We did end up having to replace the driver's side downpipe that connects to the exhaust manifold to the Y pipe. The car was extremely loud before because with all the tension pulling on all the pipes, there wasn't a clean connection between the exhaust manifold and the Y pipe on the passenger side. So basically we made the leak even louder, but we fixed it. Well, supposedly we fixed it. Now I got you guys set up so that you guys can hear if it's really loud in the front here or if it's quiet, because if it's quiet, that means we got everything hooked up correctly. If it's really loud, that means we got a leak somewhere, and that's not good. So let's go ahead and see if we got enough power to the battery to where we can start this car. Ooh, close, but not quite yet. The battery must be really low. We do have 100 amps going directly to the battery. I do have it set to start, because normally that would destroy your battery if you charge it at 100 amps, but we're gonna see if maybe we just need to get her started and then she'll charge the battery on herself. Oh, wait. We got a plus and a minus. The plus, the car's a little bit quieter. The minus, it's still loud. The good news is that we fixed the issue on the passenger side. It's not loud anymore. Now the issue is it's loud on the driver's side. Now I think that has to do with a nut that will not, well, I wouldn't say will not, it's just having a really hard time going on the stud that mounts up to the exhaust manifold. You really got to crank on it. I thought I was cross-threading it. I am not cross-threading it. There's two nuts on it, and I've got the one nut on this side on, as close to the firewall, but the one that's near the four-wheel drive shaft, it's just giving me problems. And I'm thinking maybe I don't have it on all the way, so it's creating somewhat of like a tiny little gap, because it is not supposed to be as loud as it is. We just got this package in, and this is going to be our new exhaust. Well, kind of. We got this off of a 97 Montero because the 97 Montero shares the same exhaust as the 98, the 99, and the 2000. While they are different body styles, they do share the 3.5 liter V6 engine. And I did double check to make sure that the part numbers were the same, and they were. So I actually found a guy up in Arkansas parting out this 97 Montero, and I hit him up and I said, hey, I need this part, can you get it for me? And he said he'd sell it to me, so we made a deal, and I got this for $50, which is a pretty good deal, since most of the time people don't buy exhaust parts from parting out cars. It's usually something people don't need. So we're gonna open this up here and see what we're working with. That is going to be our part right there. This donut is gonna have to be replaced. It's got some chewing up here and some separation, but I may be able to get it off the other one. Now this is an Arkansas car, so it does have a little bit of rust. So you can see this ring's pretty corroded. He had the same issue as me, getting the nuts off of the studs that connect this Y pipe to the exhaust manifold, so he did have to end up cutting it off. That's not an issue to us. This should be the correct pipe. So let's go ahead and take the one off of the car that's on right now, switch out this donut, and get this one mounted up.
All we gotta do is we're gonna have to disconnect the O2 sensor, disconnect it from the catalytic converter, and then from the exhaust manifold. We got to disconnect the Y pipe from the catalytic converter, so we're going to go ahead and use our size 17 wrench here and remove these nuts holding it on. Now we're going to disconnect our O2 sensor using a size 22 wrench. Now we're going to be careful not to dirty up this end because that's going to go back into the pipe. So I'm just going to tuck it up here where it'll stay clean. And now we just need to disconnect it from the exhaust manifold, which is going to be a task in itself. So I think we'll cut to it after that. We got the new Y pipe from the 97 parts car versus the Y pipe from our 96 parts car, but that's the correct one. This one's just the wrong links in the wrong places. And whenever you put the two on top of each other, it's pretty easy to see. The one from the 97 is the correct one because this pipe that actually goes to the driver's side is actually longer. And then over here, that connects to the passenger side is actually shorter.
We need to replace the donut gasket on the Y pipe. Now the trickiest part was finding a replacement gasket because Mitsubishi no longer produces this part and all the universal ones don't fit. Instead, we're going to remove the donut gasket from our old exhaust and swap it onto the new one. Since the gasket is irreplaceable, we got to be really careful whenever we're removing it from our old exhaust because if we damage it or puncture a hole, there's a potential that we could leak exhaust fumes. Now I had to do this off camera because I was really focused in and I didn't want to mess it up. But what you can see here is removing the old one from the new exhaust and you can see how rusty and corroded this is. Since I've already done this multiple times, I didn't want to record it, so I put the exhaust gasket back on and installed everything back onto the car. It seems like replacing the full exhaust system from the exhaust manifolds back did the trick because there's no loud noise coming from the passenger fender well area. She's running a lot smoother and the only noise I can hear from her at the moment are her lifters. They're a little loud. We're gonna go ahead and kill the car so we don't burn through any more fuel. Unfortunately for us, that fuel's not gonna stay in this car because I found out there's a leak in the fuel tank. So I don't really care if I end up leaving it running and we run through it all because we're either gonna use it all whenever the car is running or it's gonna leak out onto the grass. If you wanna see more videos on the restoration of this 1999 Mitsubishi Montero, then hit that like and subscribe button. But guys, until next time, I will see you later. Have an amazing day.